Yep. Good evening, everyone. So yesterday we learned about how to deal with various storages. We learned about reducer and how to work with different types of functions, storages in hooks. Now, after understanding that, now we are going to learn about how to deal with class components. So if we are completely aware of even classes, how they work, then we can start using all this in building one app, means some project with end-to-end functionalities and all. We can see that. So first point is to understand class components. You need to know about JavaScript classes. So we will first discuss about the concept of classes in JavaScript. If you know perfect about classes in JavaScript, then you can use them in creating components. We'll see that. So JavaScript classes, but I told you already in latest versions, it is recommended to use function components. Use the function components. Class components are okay, but up to 17 we are using classes. Now we are migrating to function. Reasons also we will see. What are the reasons, how it is different. But first you should understand the concept of classes in JavaScript. Is JavaScript a OOP language? No, it is not an OOP language, but it supports some features of OOP, some concepts of OOP. Actually, in general, first to understand classes, you should know. So what is a class? Programming technologies use various types of systems in real world application development. Actually, we have different types of programming systems like POPS, OBPS, like OOPS, all these are. These are different programming systems. So process oriented programming system, object based programming system, object oriented. These are different programming systems are there. So what is difference between them actually is POPS is process oriented programming system. POPS is process oriented programming system. And what are the key features of POPS, process oriented programming system is it supports low level features. Actually, it can directly interact with hardware services. It uses less memory. It is faster in interactions. That is one important concept about POPS. Process oriented programming systems are these. Process-oriented programming system, they support low-level features. They can directly interact with hardware. They use very less memory and they are fast. But what are example for this, C, Pascal, COBOL, all these comes under that category, POPS. These are process-oriented programming systems. I will not go much in depth about discussing them, just key points I will tell here. So the main features of POPSs are these. Even in a less memory, they can run. They are lightweight, they are faster. But what is issue is reusability issues. Reusability issue, extensibility issues, dynamic memory problems. These are all the major concerns of POPS. It's not great in reusability, extensibility, dynamic memories and all. But they are good in certain occasions. For example, you see, you have embedded systems. For example, we have a refrigerator, washing machine, air condition. These all run with some software. Do you know with a remote, you can control the fan speed, you can control the spinning speed, you can control the spinning direction, right? You can increase, decrease the temperature. But have you ever seen refrigerator software updated? So air condition updated. At the time of manufacturing, what is kept in a small chip inside them, it is till it dies, it is same. You cannot change, you cannot upgrade, you can't modify, right? They are good in that, but they are directly interacting with hardware. A program can control a hardware like fan. It can control the device directly. That is the ability of POPS. But they are not great in reusability, extensibility, dynamic memories and all. That is the problem. Another, we have OBPS. OBPS is object-based programming. Object-based programming system. So object-based programming system supports reusability. It supports extensibility, but it is limited, not complete extensible features. It supports dynamic memory. These are all present, but in limit. So example for this, JavaScript, VB, Visual Basic, like languages comes under this category. They are OBPS actually. Object-based programming system. What is main concern is no dynamic polymorphism. They don't have dynamic polymorphism. And no code level security. Code level security will not be there. So many others which you will learn in OOP, we will discuss about them. So no dynamic polymorphism, no code level securities, all these are the concerns of OBPS, object-based programming. So they are little better than POPs, but they have also certain issues. JavaScript comes under this category. It is an object-based program. We have OOP. What is it? Object-oriented programming system. Oriented programming system. What is the key feature is it supports reusability. It supports extensibility. It supports code level security. So it supports dynamic polymorphism. These are all the key features. It supports all these things. And you know, example, C++, Java, C#, these are popular OOP languages in the world. What is problem with OOP? So many problems are there. OOP language is not great every time. So what is the major problem with object-oriented programming is they do not support low-level features. They cannot directly interact with hardware services. They need more memory. They are slow in interactions. These are all the problems with OOP. So object-oriented programming is not a great programming environment for every type of application. It doesn't suit for certain situations. So it doesn't support low-level features. It cannot directly interact with hardware. It needs more memory. It is very slow in interactions. But if you want features, you have to compromise with memory, speed. If you are not looking for features, then we have better than OOP, object-oriented. For example, suppose, do you know there is a floppy disk. Floppy disk is there. Have you ever used it? No. So actually, do you know when we started using, means I'm talking about the situation before Windows. So Windows first came as operating environment. After that, it became operating system. It came in early 1985, 87. At that time, it was operating environment. 95, it became operating system. Do you know floppy disk capacity? A floppy disk capacity 1.44 MB. That means a floppy disk capacity is 1 MB. Do you know in that 1 MB we used to have operating system, we used to have softwares, we used to have our files also in that 1 MB. That means in that 1 MB we boot our computer with a floppy, softwares will be in the floppy. Through that software we can design letters, documents, everything. We have softwares. We have files also saved in that, in 1 MB only. Now 1 MB means even a photo crosses 1 MB. No? That means now 1 MB is nothing, right? In 1 MB we used to maintain operating system, software, files, everything. But now you have operating system like Windows. It needs minimum 5-6 GB to run. But Windows have graphical interface. It is very attractive. It is very easy to use. You are looking for features, then you need to compromise with size, space. You need to compromise even with speed, right? That means, for example, you are using mobile. Your mobile touchscreen mobiles. They use Android, which is designed in Java. It uses Java, right? Android, iOS, right? Now you have a 25,000 Android phone and you have a 1,000 rupees ordinary Symbian phone. You know, operating system Symbian is used in them. Character based. Dial pads are there now. So 800, 600 mobiles will be there. Now you turn on those two mobiles. This 1,000 rupees mobile will get ready first. It will never hang up. It will immediately respond. But your 1,000, 20, 30,000 phone is still loading. It may hang up in between sometimes. So you are looking for features, then you compromise with your speed. You compromise with your space. So technically at low memory also a software can run means you have to compromise with features. Actually these object oriented programming, that is the reason object oriented programming is not a great concept everywhere. It is not a great concept everywhere. Why? Because it has problems. Generally, we call it as tedious. OOP languages are tedious. So actually, it is tedious. Tedious. Tedious means slow, lazy, heavy. These all are the meaning of tedious. Right? Tedious means it is very lazy, very slow, very not active in responding. That is tedious. So that is one term used for OOP languages actually. So they don't fit everywhere. So that is the main reason why we stopped using classes in React. Why? Because class is a concept of OOP. And obviously these problems are there. They are good in certain areas, but not great everywhere. That's the reason I showed you official community of React. What official community of React recommends? It recommends using of functions in new code instead of using class. We migrated actually from classes to functions, but still several projects may be using, but in future we don't recommend, right? Why we are learning classes components? Because you may have to work with them in some projects. That's the reason. Otherwise in modern React, they never use. When you created a project, automatically one app component created now. Am I right? Have you seen which component it is? Class or function? Function. It is inbuilt using functions, right? So, but classes have their own issues. What is that? We will see now, right? So to understand this, I just explained a point about what. So what is the main concern about object-oriented programming? Object-oriented programming main concern is reusability, maintainability, extensibility. All these are the key features. But issues is more memory, so very slow interactions. So these are concerns actually, right? That is the reason we don't recommend these everywhere, right? Now the question here is, so what is a class? Technically, what is a class? How you define a class? So one important note you need to know is JavaScript is not an OOP language. It supports few features of OOP. That's one basic thing you should know. It is not an OOP language. It supports only some features of OOP. Now, technically, what is a class And how do you define a class? In object-oriented programming, technically class is a program template. Class is a program template. Actually, people have different uh, words for classes. They use different terms for classes. Generally, sometimes people say class is logical entity. Sometimes people say class is a blueprint. Usually, general people understanding about class is like it is a blueprint. That's what many languages, technologies will teach you, like class is a blueprint. But in technical terms, class is actually a program template. I will explain why people call it in different ways. So, what exactly it is? Exactly in computer programming, class is a template. What is a template means? Template means a template contains predefined data and logic. Already data and logic is defined. We can use it. You can extend, customize according to your requirements. Right? So a template provides predefined data and logic, which you can implement, and customize according to requirements. Template provides predefined data and logic which you can implement and customize according to requirements. You can implement and customize according to the requirements. So this concept, how this concept works actually means why people have different terms for that. Why people are having different terms for that is, suppose you see we are having some business requirements, or you can say business logic. Okay. And we have data logic. We have two types of logics in an app. So some logic is related to business and some logic is related to data. We have data logic and a business logic. So data logic means it deals with storing some data, accessing the data, modifying the data, deleting the data. Business logic means general interactions. You click something, it has to show you a message. You click something, it should do some functionality. All such is business logic that doesn't need data. That means now a developer, as a developer is writing, developer is designing some code. That means a developer is writing some code. So, and this code is mapping to business requirements. That means it is mapping to the business requirements. For business logic, we are writing some code. Then, for example, this code is a class. That means we have a class. This class is designed with some logic and data which is related to business. It is not related to data. Then we call this class as entity. We call the class as entity. Entity means that represents business. Business objects, we call them as. That means if any code written by developer mapping to the business requirements, then we call it as an entity. Entity represents business. But if this class is designed for data requirements, then it is called as, we call it as a model. Model. Now, what is a class? Is it an entity or a model? It has both behaviors. It has entity behavior, it has a model behavior. Is it model or entity? Both. Is every time class is an entity? No. Only when it is mapping to business requirement, then we call it as an entity. If it is mapping to data requirements, any logic written by a developer for data, then we call it as a model. So data related logic is model. Business related logic is entity. So some people call class as logical entity. That's okay. But class is not a logical entity every time. Class is a model sometimes. Class is a logical entity sometimes. That means it have both behaviors. Then what is exactly class? It is a template. It can have model behavior. It can have entity behavior. So generally in software development, we call model classes. For example, we have an architecture called MVC, model view controller, MVC, where model means that represents data. Model classes means the logic that represents the data. Actually, I haven't discussed any evolution. Actual evolution history not required. But if I see, I will give a simple point. Means just object-oriented programming, how it came. How object-oriented programming started. Actually, Alan Kay, he developed the concept of object in early 1960s. In early 1960s, Alan Kay invented a concept of object in computer programming. The main concept of object is to keep all related data and logic together. Many people think object is a concept of OOP language, but object was there before OOP language was born. That means object doesn't belong to OOP, right? OOP came from object. So many people have a wrong idea. When you say what is an object, Java, all these people will tell that object is an instance of class. They always relate it with class, but object is there before class was born. That means the concept of object. You learned JavaScript objects. Have you used a class anywhere? But it is an object. Means keep all related data and logic together. Actually, Alan Kay developed object. Johan Ole and Christian Nygaard. These two people developed object-oriented programming. They invented the concept of object-oriented programming with a language called Simula. Simula 67 is the first OOP language. They introduced the concept of code reusability. They invented. They designed the concept called class, where they can keep some data and they can use it from any place by creating an object for that class. Actually, many people think OOP language means C++. Before C++, we have OOP languages. So Simula 67 is the first object-oriented programming language. It was designed for simulation systems actually. After that, try give. Trygve developed the concept called Trygve developed code code separation. He developed code separation with a framework called MVC in early 1970s. In 1970s, and it was first used with a language called Smalltalk. Smalltalk. Simula is the language which introduced code reusability. Smalltalk is the language that introduced code separation. MVC is a very popular framework in modern generation. Java, .NET, PHP, Python, everybody uses this MVC framework, but it was in early 1970s. It was originally designed for desktop applications, but now we are using for web. Java people use MVC by name Spring. PHP people use MVC by name Django, Flask. .NET people use MVC by name ASP.NET MVC, MVC Core. So technically, similar after that Smalltalk. After that, C++ came in 1975 early. After that, Java came in 1990s. After that, C# came in 2000, 2002, 3. That means this is the evolution of the popular OOP languages in the world. Currently, the popular OOP languages in the world are C++, Java, and C#. This is basic evolution. Means the concept of class is to create a program entity. Means it's a program template. Will you call it as an entity or will you call it as a model? That depends on the requirement. Class have both behaviors as a model, as an entity. Why people call them blueprint? Because blueprint means nothing but what happens. Suppose you are having a certificate. You are having your certificate. Now you take that certificate 100 Xerox copies. That means you can make hundreds of duplicates from that certificate. And what is the certificate for you? For all those Xerox copies, certificate is a blueprint. Am I right? From that one blueprint, hundreds of copies are made. That means class is only one. There is only one blueprint. But with that, we can create multiple objects for different location, different situation. We can create multiple objects. It have a behavior like blueprint. That's the reason people may call it as a blueprint, but it is not a technical definition. It's a general term. Blueprint is not a technical term about class. It is a general terminology, right? It is like a blueprint, but it is not a blueprint in general. It is a template. It is a template. So class have two behaviors. That means class have various behaviors. So class have various behaviors like entity and model. So we have behaviors like entity and model. If a class is designed for business requirements, then it is known as entity. If a class is designed for data requirements, then it is known as model. So entity and model. So it is often known as a blueprint for creating multiple instances. It is often known as a blueprint for creating multiple instances. So that is the technical point about classes. The concept of designing a class simulation system. Actually, if we go more to know about the history of OOP and all, so much is there, right? So it's like a movie story, right? So much is there that not required. Just technical terms are understandable, that's okay. Because if you know what is a simulation system, then you will be surprised with that simulation system. Simulation system, and do you know uh, what are the high intelligent computers in the world? What they are known as highly intelligent computers in the world, what they are known as, what technology they use. Highly intelligent means extreme artificial intelligence technology used computers are there. What they are known as, what technology is used for them. Quantum computers, quantum computers, which are very highly extreme technologies and very rare they are. Very less number we have quantum. We are highly professional. That means actually you might have heard about supercomputers, huh? Right? Supercomputers are more high. You know, mini computers, mainframe computers, supercomputers are there, right? So actually, quantum computer, right? Computer, right? Quantum computer. So actually, these are quantum computing. So it's a very complex. These are, you know, even Google is using for artificial intelligence and all. They are using for artificial intelligence. These are quantum machines, right? They are highly intelligent, artificial intelligence. You might have seen in some of Hollywood movies about this, but they are in real. They are in real. In real, we have them. But what is problem with them is they are out of control of humans at extreme level. That's the reason we still are experimenting on this. We are not completely dependent on this. Even Google people like also facing problems with them. Because what these computers are like humans, they can sense you. That means they have so many artificial intelligence, technically so much complex, right? That means the problem, they create a lot of problems, artificial intelligence problems. I hope you know few months back, do you know WhatsApp stopped for few hours? Remember? For an overnight, WhatsApp stopped for 4 or 5 hours a few months back. It stopped. One of the main reason why they stopped the claim, because generally they don't tell the correct reason, because they are very much threatening to outside world if they know it. That some, but technicians know what happened. That means what technically happened is Facebook community has started an artificial intelligence program to handle some functionalities in a WhatsApp meta community. What they have done, they implemented a artificial intelligence program through quantum techniques. Then what happened is after they implemented that, overnight they want to test it. They implemented it because during late hours less people may be using it. Then they want to implement it. When they started that, just after adding that into the computing system, in 1 hour that artificial intelligence program created multiple clones of its software, and it developed a new language, and through that language they started communicating with each other. Now they are out of control of developers don't know that language. That means what an application had done, it developed a language in few hours, and through that language it created clones, and it started communicating with that language with those clones. A developer don't know what it is doing because he don't know that language. So then what they have to do, they have to stop the complete servers. They have to discard all those add-ons whatever they have done, and they have to reboot the systems, which is very costly and very dangerous. That is one major problem, right? These are so many are there which you don't know. That means for you artificial intelligence may be like chat GPT, right? But do you know 5-10 years back, before this chat GPT and all, 10-15 years back also we have these, but we are not dared to use them. Now they have some dare to use, but still they are out of control. They are out of control. I think you know on YouTube still videos are available, you can watch. What videos? Facebook CEO, Google CEO interrogated by American Congress. On YouTube still videos are there, you can go through them. That means interrogated, they were interrogated by FBI, American Congress, that, and you see the complete conversation. That means they ask questions, not questions, it's like commanding them. That means interrogating them, like they simply ask, so why this is happening in your Google? And if you listen to CEO of Google answer, you will never use Google again. If you listen to the answer of Facebook CEO, you will never use Facebook again. That means what he answers is, that is not my job, that is not under my control, what should I do? That means the person asks him a question, your Facebook is doing like that, it is leaking the data, sending the data to somebody. Then his answer is, what should I do? It's not under my control. Your app is not under your control. Then what is about safety, security, right? You can see the video, you can watch the complete conversation, right? If you have time today, see. That means the problem is the usage of these extreme technologies will lead to lot of issues. Actually, simulation system means, I told you this because of simulation system. Because if you want to know about the history of hoops, it's very huge. Like a movie it will be, right? Like a movie story it will be. Simulation system means, do you know? Simulation system means they will have multiple units, processing units. And in multiple processing units, they are connected to each other. They are connected to each other. Now, this is all in one computer only. In one computer, several units will be there, processing units. Now, what will happen? All processing units to communicate, they have to use a system, simulation system. They need to follow a mechanism called simulation system. Simulation system means what? The first unit will start. It will simulate the unit beside it. This will simulate the unit beside it, like a chain reaction. Finally, entire system becomes ready. To make the entire system ready, it needs a simulation system. These two people, Johan Ole, Christian Nygaard, these were working on that system. When they are working on system, what is the problem they faced is they want to use some code and they want this code everywhere. Then what they have to do, they have to rewrite everywhere. If they have to rewrite everywhere and any change they have to make everywhere, they have to make the change. To overcome this problem for simulation system, they invented a language called Simula, where they can create all the logic at one place and they can access that logic through instances everywhere. Understood? That is the reason they named that as Simula. Simulation system actually it is. Right? That is the history of OOP, how the OOP languages came, why they invented the class concept to overcome the problems of simulation system. Simulation systems are computing systems. You might not never seen them, but they use multiple processing units. Generally, computer have only one processing unit. At multiple processing units, data duplication, data reusability is a big concern. And to overcome that, they developed a language called Simula. Actually, you have a language called Simula 67. Actually, Simula 67 is the very popular one. This is very popular. It is, so this is Johan Ole and Nygaard. These people developed this simulation system in the early 1960s, in the early 1967. Right? These sim scripts, we call them as, they are very huge. They are very huge. Technically, OOP concept came from that point, and class also came from a simulation system. So in a simulation system, multiple units will be there. Data need to be shared everywhere. They need to rewrite everywhere. To overcome that problem, they designed a concept of class, so that they can keep the logic at one place, they can access from different location, and they can reuse it. It is easy to reuse, it is easy to extend. But they haven't developed code separation. They developed only code reusability. Code separation was invented by Trygve. We call him father of MVC. He invented the concept of code separation. Later, OOP languages came with both features: code reusability, code separation. Code separation, both integrated into that. Smalltalk is very popular for code separation. That means now you are learning the front end, back end. Earlier we don't have that. Everything is only one. The front end, back end, that concept introduced by Trygve only. That means in the beginning, when we used to build an application, there is no front end, back end. Right? The front end, back end concept started with Smalltalk. So he invented that concept. Trygve. He invented. He separated. User interface separate, data separate, logic separate. He separated. So actually, Trygve documentations are very huge actually. These, I have them. MVC. MVC original is there. Yeah. Actually, this is the original document of Trygve. Original documentation of Trygve. This is the original documentation of Trygve. This is the original MVC document. Actually, this is the actual documentation written by Trygve, the person who invented an architecture called MVC. Right? And this is his original documentation. So model view controller. Right? That means he explained why he have to invent this. He was working on a project. This is his original document. It is his original document. It is very rare document. It is the original document. Actually, it is present in a handwritten script. We converted to PDF. Right? So this is original document of MVC. He released this in the 1979, this document was published to tell the world about MVC. What is MVC? And what is his project? He was working on a British oil corporation project. And in that project, user interface, logic, data, all present at one place. He was facing lot of difficulty in managing. Then what he done? He invented an architecture of separating them. UI separate, database separate. Then he started the words front end, back end. So earlier we don't have this. Earlier everything is only one. So he invented the concept of code separation. And you know, currently MVC is the popular framework across any technology in the world. Java, .NET, PHP, Python, everybody have to use MVC. Model View Controller Architecture. This is the concept actually. So technically, the class is a program template. It have the behavior of entity and the model. So when it is mapping to data requirements, we call it as a model. When it is mapping to business requirements, we call it as an entity. Right? That is the concept of class. Next, how a class is configured. In JavaScript, two techniques are there. So you can configure class using two techniques. Two techniques. One is you can configure class using two techniques. One is class declaration. Another one is class expression. We have two techniques. Class declaration and class expression. So how do you define a class? In two ways, declaration and expression actually. So actually declaration means what? Generally you will have a class keyword and we have a class name. That means suppose product is a class name. This is declaration. Expression means what? Expression means we have a variable, some product is equal to class. This is expression. A class can be defined in two ways, as a declaration and as an expression. What is difference? Even function have same things. I told you in the beginning when we learned in JavaScript, generally you have function also two techniques, function declaration, function expression. We have class declaration and class expression. Both are valid. Then what is difference? In the second case, this product is not a class. It is a memory where a class is stored. What is the advantage of this? In this memory, another class can be stored later. That means you are not allocating a static memory for class. You are allocating a memory where a class can change. That means I want a memory for class, but the class must not be same. Then we use an expression technique. That means one memory only, but class will be changing. In one situation, one class, in another situation, another. You can assign later you can assign another class. If it is constant, you cannot assign. But if it is var or let, you can assign another class into this. That means I want a memory to handle multiple classes. Then expression. I want individual memory for every class. Then we have a class declaration. So a class can be defined through declaration or expression. Even function also same. In JavaScript, function have a declaration and function have an expression. We can use both techniques. Next important, you should know about, so what are class members? What are class members? That means what type of members you can have a class in a class. So actually class is a template. So what is the point then? Its members must be mutable. Its members must be mutable. Class is a template. It is a template. Template means it can be customized according to requirement. In that case, it cannot have a member which is not changeable. That means a class member must be a mutable member. Must be a mutable member. So JavaScript class member can be any one of the following. What are those? Class member can be a property, it can be an accessor, it can be a constructor, or it can be a method. Only these are allowed in a class. So in JavaScript, class member can be any of these following. It can be a property or an accessor or a method or a constructor. Only these are allowed as class members. So class members means this: the property, the accessor, the method, and constructors. Now the question here is, so for example, when we work with classes, right, these are the members of class. And usually, if anyone asks us a question like, generally in a interview question is like, suppose this is a class we are defining and demo some class name. This is actually class declaration. What can be a member of the class? So here, if anybody have a question like the questions like, can we have a variable as class member? Class member. The answer is no. You cannot have a variable as class member. The question is very tricky. Can we have a variable in class? Yes. Answer is yes. What does it mean? You can have a variable in class, but variable cannot be a class member. So why variable cannot be a class member? That is also an important thing. That means, can we have a variable as class member? No chance. Class member can be either property or accessor or method or constructor. But we can have a variable in class. So how this will justify? For example, var x equal to 10. It's not possible. It's not possible. So that means you see here what is var? Variable. Why it is not allowed? Because a constructor or a method or accessor or property only allowed. You can have only these. We cannot have a variable as class member. But remember, suppose I have a print method. In that I can have a variable. We can have a variable in class, but variable cannot be class member. Now X is not class member. X is a member of print. So the question is tricky. If anyone asks, can we have a variable in class? Yes. Can we have a variable as class member? No. So why you cannot have a variable as class member? So the question here is why we cannot have a variable as class member? Because the concept is simple. Variables are immutable. And the class can have only mutable members. So variable is immutable. Now the question is, how do you prove this, that variables are immutable? Immutable means what? Their structure cannot change dynamically. Immutable is not about data. Immutable is about their data structure. A structure cannot change dynamically. For example, see, why it is immutable? Simple. Concept is simple. Suppose I defined var price is equal to I initialized some price. Now I want price in such a way that it cannot be changed. Then how? If I declare var price, it can be changed. Later, if I put price is something, is it valid? It is valid. Why? Because you are declaring with var. Var allows to assign. We don't want to assign. Then what we have to do? Const. Const price. We can define something. Now it will not allow to assign. I want a variable in such a way that for admin user, it should allow to assign. For general user, it should not allow to assign. If my role is admin, I must able to assign a new value. If my role is not admin, I should not able to assign a new value. Then how? If I use var or let, they are always assignable. If I use const, they are always not assignable. Then how? In one case, it should allow to assign. In another case, it should not allow to assign. Are you thinking? There is nothing to think. It's not possible. There is nothing to think. Waste of time. It's not possible. That means, can you define a variable like that? It's not possible. That is the reason it is not allowed in a class. It is not allowed in a class. Then how class stores the data? How class stores the data? Class stores the data in property. Property is used to store the data, not a variable. What is difference between a property and a variable? Properties are mutable. That means you are saying that property can change behavior. In one situation, read only. In another situation, read write. Yes, it can do. How it can do? By using accessors. A property can change the behavior according to the situation. So technically, why variable is not allowed in a class? Variable is not allowed in a class because variables are immutable. Not allowed in a class means not allowed as a class member. So we will prove that point here. Then how to store the data? We have to store the data in a property. So in class members, the first one is property. So what is property in class? We will see. A property is mutable. It is used to store data. It is used to store data for class. It is used to store data for class. It can store any type of data. So it can be primitive or it can be non-primitive. That means syntactically class name, and we have a property in that we can store anything. We can have a number, we can have a string, we can have a boolean, we can have array, we can have object, anything, we can have date, anything you can store. And in JavaScript, property will just have a name, and in that you can store anything. You can store anything. And how do we access the property? You can access class member within class by using this keyword, and you can access class member outside class by using instance of class. That means what you have to do, let obj is equal to new class name, and through obj you can access the property. So inside the class members are accessible by using this. Outside the class, they are accessible by using the property. That is a general thing about class. So how do you declare a class? How do you define the members and configure? So generally here we are defining the classes. Suppose we have this one, right? So here we are having a class. In this class, we have a name. It can be a string. So we have some price. It can be a number. We have stock. It can be a boolean. We have cities. It can be an array. So it can have rating. So which can be an object. All these are same. How to access them? We create an object for that class. And through that object, we can access those members. We can print, we can assign in them. But what is the key fact about these properties? They are mutable. In one situation, they behave in one way, in another situation, in another way. How the behavior can be controlled? How you can control the behavior? First, I will give a simple one. How to print them? Then here we have to use obj dot what name. So we have like obj dot price. Like this we have to use. Just all the concepts are same. That means you are accessing them and we are printing them. Just how to deal with those values same. That is not the major point here. I will just give an example. But how you say that these are mutable? How we control them? Actually, we control them by using the concept of what? Accessors. Class related another important member is accessors. Class have properties, class have these are all JavaScript basics, right? In React, these are not the concepts to learn, but I'm giving a outline overview of what a developer need to know about class before using class in React. Right? Without knowing all this, if you try to use a class, you will have to face a lot of issues in class components. That's the basic things you should know. What is accessor? Actually, accessors give a fine-grained control over property. Accessors give a fine-grained control over property. They can handle read-write operations on property. So accessors are of two types. One, we have a get, we call it as getter, and we have set, which is a setter. So getter is used to read and return value of a property. Setter is used to store a new value into property. Getter is for reading and setter is for writing. You can write data into a property by using accessors. Accessors will control the behavior of a property. That is the reason properties are mutable and that can be controlled using these accessors. Let's see one example for this, how the getters and setters will work. Actually, syntactically, how to use get, we have to use a name. Actually, we call alias name. And what this getter have to do, it should return the property value. It should return the property value. And how setter is used, it uses an alias name and it will take a new value, and what it is going to do, into the property it will assign the new value. That's how getter setters are defined. Getter is for reading and returning the value, and setter is for storing a value. So now let's see how this works, means how it is going to handle. So how it is going to deal with this. So just one point we'll see now. Suppose we are having a class called product. This is having product name. Product name is a property. And I given underscore. Underscore is just a tradition to define that it requires further implementation. So it is not final and we don't use it directly. To represent that, we use underscore as prefix. It's a traditional approach. Now what I want is, generally into this property anybody can store and anybody can read. There is no restriction for this. Now I want to restrict it. Then how? See, what we will do is we will ask username. We will take it from a prompt, enter name. Okay. We will ask role and we will take it for a prompt, enter your role. And role can be like, so admin, or it can be like customer. Okay. Now what should happen is, if the role is admin, then he must be able to store some value into product name. He can change product name. But if it role is customer, he cannot. He can just see. He cannot assign. So what is the property product name? Why I give an underscore product name? Because I don't want it to use it directly. If you don't want to use it directly, how you will use? By alias name. So we don't want developer to deal with directly. We will create an getter. And alias name is product name. That means through this name, now we can control this. What a getter should do, it should return the value stored inside that property. What is the property? This dot what? Underscore product name. That means whatever is stored inside this, it will access and it will return. Then what is that name? Product name. Alias name is this. Okay. What is setter? Setter also uses an alias name. It will take new name, and what it is going to do, it will set that name into this dot underscore product name is equal to what? New name. But here we have restriction. Restriction is everybody should not able to set. If role is equal to admin, then only this is possible. If not, then we will put a message document.write hello username you are not authorized to set product name. This is the message we are giving. That means now what we are doing is we are having a restriction for storing the data into a property. This is not possible for variable. Variable cannot change its behavior. Now we have two behavior. If it is customer, it will allow to assign. If it is customer, it will not allow to assign. If it is admin, it will allow to assign. Now what we will do here, we will create an object. let obj is equal to new product, and through object we are accessing product name. Into that we want to store. That means we will ask prompt enter product name, and now we want to store. Then see what happens when you enter a product name. Suppose you entered TV, then this should be stored inside this property, but this is actually not property. It is an accessor now. It is not property. Original property name is different. It is an accessor. Then where the data will go first? That means when you enter TV, it will go to this accessor. It will send the TV here. That means now what it will do, it will verify, is it admin? If it is admin, then it will store inside the property. Otherwise, it will not. That means whether the new value you entered, it can be stored inside the property, will be decided by this accessor. It will be decided by that accessor. Now, if it is unable to store what is present in product name, if it is unable to store, then what is present in product name? Undefined. Product is undefined. If it is able to store, then it will have some name. If it is not storing anything, it is undefined. So we will write a condition. If obj.product name means if it is defined, then print it. Document.write. Document.write, we will print it. Document.write, we are going to print what is it? Product name and whatever the new name they entered. How to access the name? Obj.what? Product name. This is the getter working here to read the value. This is the setter working here to store the value. But before setting, it will change. Now see what happens. It will ask us, that means it is going to ask enter name. Some name is some John. Role is customer, and now product name is Samsung TV. You are not authorized. You are not authorized. Okay. I will enter name John. Role is admin. Now name is some Samsung TV. Now it's okay. That means the product name is a property which is changing its behavior. In one situation, it is read only. In another situation, it is read write. How it is changing its behavior. And if it can change its behavior, then it is called mutable. Mutable means it can change according to the situation. State. Right? That is the concept of properties and accessors. Properties are for storing the data, and accessors are used to control the data. Control read and write operations on that. That means you entered some name. So, and you entered some customer, and you entered some product name, Nike Casuals, something like this. It will not take. You are not authorized. Okay, some name and some role is admin and product name is Nike Casuals. Okay, you can store that. That means it is changing according to the situation. Remember, I just given a situation for storing. You can give a situation for reading also. That means everyone cannot read the value. According to the role, you can read the value. That means, for example, you will see several websites, especially bikes, cars, or real estates and all. They will say that we will not show you price until or unless you give your contact. That means you log in or contact, then we will show the price. Even to read also, we need permission. Even to see also, we need a permission. If you are authorized, you will see. You are not authorized, it will not show. That is, reading also can have a restriction. Not only writing. Read-write restrictions can be controlled by using accessors. We call them getters and setters. This is the concept about the class. Now you learn two members in a class. One is property, another one accessor. Now class have methods and constructors. What are those? We will see in next session. What are those? How they work? We will see. Once you are aware of all this, you should know inheritance, polymorphism also. Once we know this, then we are ready to use this in React. Right? To use in React, you should know all these basics of classes. Right? That we'll see in next session. Again, next session will be on Monday. Tomorrow, no session. Tomorrow is holiday. Right? Again, next session on Monday. Monday will continue. Okay? Right.